Yeah, I did that while the show was actually starting, and all you hear is they couldn't take it out because it was over the promo.
Or are under the preconceived notion that investing is only for the wealthy. Magnus and his expert guests are here to help you. Now, here is your host, Magnus Carter.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Making More Money for You show. I'm your host, Magnus Carter. Thank you for tuning in. I have a couple of quick things I want to go over with you guys. You know, this is my 8th after the first month of being on live radio at Voice America. I have had over 1,500 listens, and it's thanks to you guys. Thank you very much for On Demand, for being with me live. You know, it's been great doing this, and I look forward to doing more episodes with great content with my guests and with myself. So last week, speaking of content, last week we had a show about investing in your mind. It mainly talked about going to college as one of the main ways of investing in your mind with Mr. Steve Hassinger. But just to reiterate, it doesn't have to be college to invest in your mind. It can be anything you decide to actually put time into that you want to learn. So there's many opportunities out there. Find which one is right for you. And that which brings me to my guest today. He's a very special person that has been part of my journey along the publishing realm into also, and I'm welcome to have him here. Very special to have him here is Mr. AJ Dukette. AJ, thank you for being on the show.
Jacob, it's great to be here with you on Voice America.
Yes,
wow, I feel like I've really finally hit the big time here.
That is right. You are actually
America,
streaming.
Maybe, are we supposed to open with the national anthem?
No national anthem here, because we are actually worldwide. We are streaming all over the world, and we are also streaming our voice on demand. People will actually get to hear us on 6 different platforms, including Spotify, iTunes, also Amazon Prime Music.
Are you trying to make me nervous? Because it's working.
No, there's no need to be nervous. We're just having a great conversation here.
Just amongst friends, huh?
Just amongst friends. We'll have some great content. I like bringing value to my listeners and whatnot, because in these times of economic uncertainty, definitely we're all trying to make more money for ourselves. And a lot of things that we're actually doing is finding other ways to do it that are easily overlooked. One episode that we had was turning your extra rooms into Airbnb rooms. So they actually make their money. Last week was investing in your mind. The more knowledge you have, the more you can actually apply yourself and go from there. So in your line of work, what we're actually going to be doing is talking about making money. And what that is, what I mean by that, everyone, is AJ is actually a voiceover recording artist. He does narrations. He does commercials. AJ, what else do you do besides those 2 items?
You know, oh boy, that's really just kind of skimming the surface there. You're right. There's a lot that goes into being a voiceover artist. I have actually been doing it for about 20 years, a little over 20 years now, on a part-time basis for most of that, until I decided to take it to a full-time thing. About a year and a half ago, I made that jump. Before then, I was just kind of doing, I had a few clients I would do. It was just kind of a side hustle. I was actually a radio broadcaster for 20 years. I was a program director, music director, morning show host. I did it all. And so, that was my gig. That was my career for the longest time. And, I remember thinking about how, wow, it must be really cool seeing these entrepreneurs, doing their own thing, having their own business, the freedom that comes with that, the unlimited opportunity that comes with that. Of course, if you're working in a job like I had, you're kind of stuck with the same pay every week, unless, of course, there's the salespeople, they made commissions and things like that. But, for the most part, aside from, different like kind of bonuses or things like that, I was pretty much stuck where I was. Unless, of course, there's the annual raises. But if you ever want to really make a significant jump, you would really have to go to another station, go to another market if you wanted a jump in salary like that. So I always kind of thought in the back of my mind that, boy, it would be really cool to be an entrepreneur like that, have my own business. But I always kind of had this nagging thought in the back of my head that, oh, I couldn't do that.
A lot of us have that, just for the fact that it's uncertainty that you had a paycheck, right? You had your paycheck from your employer, but as you're saying, the uncertainty of it,
well, yeah, I mean, it is scary. That's one of the things about having your own business, is that generally speaking, at least in my position, you really don't know what you're going to make next month. You really don't know what you're going to make next week. I mean, you have a hunch, you follow your own trends, but there are really no guarantees. And I'll say it's a lot different than I thought it was. Now, to go back to your original question about, voiceover, like what does a voiceover artist do? The thing that I had been doing mostly for the time that I had been doing this on the side was radio commercials, TV commercials. And that was pretty much it. I sort of figured that that's what it was going to be like when I went full-time, is just more of that. But I soon found out after I went full-time as a voiceover artist that there are so many more voiceover categories. And in fact, TV commercials, radio commercials, they're only a very small piece of the pie when it comes to my voiceover pie. Some of the other things that I do besides broadcast commercials, e-learning has exploded. And that is one of my biggest categories. I think that it had been picking up quite a bit over the years, but especially since the pandemic, a lot of people, wanting to have the option to do things from home, and e-learning is one of those things. And there's just such high demand for e-learning voiceover. It's one of my biggest, if not my biggest, voiceover categories. There's also a category called explainer videos, which you will see a lot online. I guess you could kind of compare that to a commercial in a sense. It's basically a video that is explaining your product or service, and you'll see those a lot on a company's homepage, on their YouTube page, maybe in advertisements and social media that they do. So explainer videos have definitely become huge as of late as well. What else is there? There's it's called IVR. Basically, it's phone messages. So yeah,
everybody loves those phone messages. Press 2 for, we hang up and we will call you back.
Hello, you've reached the offices of Magnus Carter.
Exactly.
Press 1 for English. And so there's definitely still a lot of demand for that. Corporate narration. A lot of this stuff that I'm talking about is actually non-broadcast.
Okay.
The broadcast stuff is cool. You got the bragging rights. You'd be like, I did a commercial earlier this year for the Boston Celtics. I'm from New England, and so I get to say to all my friends, hey, watch TV, you're going to see me, talking about the Celtics. And it's like, it's cool. And everybody reached out to me. They're like, oh, I did something for Netflix, for a Netflix documentary recently. Like everybody I knew watched it. It was pretty cool. But a lot of the stuff I do never really sees the light of day besides its intended audience, which is, strictly internal. So the bulk of my work is that. There are some other tertiary categories, real estate, video, narration could be one of them. And let's see, what else? Website narration. And then, of course, there's the audiobooks, which is how you and I connected.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely. And if you haven't noticed by now, by listening to this, on Amazon, I have AJ Dukette narrate my books: The Making More Money for You, Mutual Fund Investing for Beginners, and the Decrypting Cryptocurrency, Writing the Data Path to Financial Freedom. So if you haven't heard them and you don't know where it was, it could have been from there.
Yeah, for sure. And those were a lot of fun to do. And I'll tell you, there are a lot of voiceover artists who consider themselves strictly audiobook narrators. They dedicate their craft to that specific category. And then there are people like me who dabble, I guess you could say. I think a year and a half ago, I was still trying to figure out exactly what my lane was in voiceover. And I've done maybe 15 audiobooks or so. And it's really, for me, I want to make sure if I'm going to make the commitment to do an audiobook, that the topic has got to be something that's going to really grab me.
Right.
Because the value I see in doing an audiobook is, kind of being able to get an education on something as I'm working. And that's sort of what happened when I did your books. I saw the titles, read them, and boy, I was like, wow, this is something that I could really find, useful for myself personally. So, why not get an education while I'm doing the work?
See, you're getting paid for it. You're investing in your mind. You're being present in the mind that you're doing. So you're actually doing everything all at once. And you're not even realizing it. But before we go any further, AJ, how did you get into radio? Take us back 20 years, give us a little story about how you actually did this, because there's might be some listeners out there right now that are actually thinking about doing this, but honestly don't know how to.
Yeah. It's interesting because I always kind of had this fascination with radio, and it was in the back of my head for quite a long time. After school, I kind of dabbled in a few, side jobs. It didn't really, amount to a career per se. And I was still kind of exploring,
Okay.
and then it just kind of went back to radio. I was like, you know what, maybe I should really go after this thing. Maybe I should do it. So, I did my homework. I, looked into, well, where do I get a start? And I found some listings online for radio jobs. Unfortunately, it seemed like every ad that I saw for a radio job said experience required. And so I was like, well, how am I ever going to get experience if every single job is experience required, So I got the idea, and I talked to a few, I chatted with a few people that were already in the business to kind of get some hints. And I guess the suggestion I got was to maybe try to target a smaller station.
Okay.
And where I lived, I grew up and spent, probably the first more than half of my life in New Hampshire, and a pretty smallish kind of city. So there was a smallish radio station in that smallish city. There was an AM radio station, and I think it had very small listenership at the time, and it was perfect for me to get my feet wet, even though it was news talk. I wanted to be on a rock station. I want to be a shock jock. I want to play cool music.
Of course, we all want to hear that.
Yeah.
Commercials all the time.
Yeah. But with this station, it wasn't really the format that I was after. It was very dry news talk, and not something that I would listen to personally. But I knew that was going to be my in to start my broadcast career. So I contacted them. They said, well, it turns out we actually do have a part-time position open, and why don't you come in for an interview? Came in for the interview with a couple of fellows, Bob Lippman and Bruce Lavoie. Remember those guys well. They were great. They were really nice. I thought the interview went fantastic. I walked out of there thinking, man, I nailed it. I killed it. Those guys love me. I got this in the bag. So days go by, a week goes by, 2 weeks go by, after I think about 3 weeks, and I had been thinking like, I don't know, man. I thought I nailed that thing, but apparently not. Then I thought, you know what? I should just reach out to them and follow up and be like, hey, thanks for the opportunity if you made a decision on the position. So I reached out. One of them says to me, Bruce, who I contacted, he said, my God, I'm so glad that you reached out to me. I lost your contact information.
Oh no.
Can you start tomorrow?
Well,
And I said, sure. So that was a lesson to me that I will never forget, that, the follow-up is vital when it comes to a job hunt. And that applies to many other things in life as well. You got to check in, you got to follow up, because I'll tell you, fast forward several years, when I was the big boss, when I was the guy in charge of hiring people, and I would, post a job, and I would interview people, and none of them followed up. And I'm like,
really?
guys, you're missing an opportunity. Sometimes I would like wait just to see.
I've been in both situations as you were. It's, do you want to commit to actually do the work? Will you show up to it? Will you do quality work if you do show up? It's that this is just one aspect of it, but it applies everywhere in life, like you're saying. So it's
yeah.
crazy.
And it certainly applies to me now, where I'm doing marketing for my voiceover business, and I have to directly reach out and cold call and cold email people on a regular basis. And a lot, I mean, people hardly ever respond on the first ping. I mean, you've got to,
no.
It's usually the second or the third, but you'd be surprised how many people don't even bother with that follow-up, or with that second follow-up or third follow-up. But it's absolutely key, especially when it comes to marketing.
Oh, I agree. It's no different in being an author trying to get reviews for your book.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
It's ridiculous. It's like, okay, you asked me for a copy of the book. Okay, I'll gladly give you the copy to review it, to read it and whatnot, but please give me some feedback, because if I don't get the feedback from the reader, I don't know if I'm doing the right job, if I'm missing something out, or I need to add something. That's key for myself and whatnot. And especially it's translating also into the radio station here, the radio show here for myself, is because as I see the numbers, as in broadcasting, you see the numbers go up, you see the numbers go down, how many listens here, wherever, it makes me make sure the content that I'm delivering is what the listener wants, and making sure their needs are met. And I'm looking to help give knowledge so they can help take that knowledge and fix their issues, whatever issue it is, and whatnot. And you're offering a service on top of that. People get lost track of time, and everybody loves our spam folders because everything goes to spam and you never look for it and it gets lost.
Yeah, it's so true. I mean, you really do have to be able to add value. And now more than ever, people's attention is being pulled in 100 different directions. And if you don't hear back from somebody right away, you can't take it personal, because that's just, think about, we can all think about how we operate on a day-to-day basis, and all of the things that are trying to pull our attention, and, thinking specifically about email, and how long do you look at an email before you decide whether or not you're going to delete it? Probably a second, less than a second. It's
actually, our attention span used to be 45 seconds. Once the internet and the speeds in the internet increased, it is now about 10 to 15 seconds that you have to have that person either say yes or no. And if it's slower than that time frame, it's a no. And if you actually make that time and they find something else wrong, it's still a no. So you have to get that, not really a hook, but you need to get the attention of it. It's like, okay, well, I'll give it another 5 seconds. 10 seconds later, it's like still
Right.
listening. And an hour later, you listen to the whole show. It's like, I see that all over the place.
Well, and I mean, and the thing with radio specifically, it's, it might even be less than that, especially with people that are listening in the car,
right.
because they get the buttons right there at their fingertips.
Mhm.
And, that's something I learned early on in radio and continued to keep in the forefront of my thought process, was that, you've got to, as soon as you start your break, you got to open with something very compelling.
Right.
Or they're just going to be like, next, and you gotta work to keep them every second.
Every second counts, especially in this. I have been finding out every second of dead air is a wasted opportunity.
Yeah, it is. It is.
So, as you're saying, keeping the quality of the content, keeping the interest of the listener, I've been finding more and more as I'm going through this, and I'm used to being on your side of being the interviewee, and I'm sure this feels weird for you being interviewed while you're always, when you're the one usually doing either
I don't know if I've ever actually been interviewed. I've done hundreds of interviews
right
in my life, and I've always carried that pressure to to be the one to keep it moving in the right direction, keep it compelling. But it was interesting thinking about this and going into this. It's like, well, that's not my job this time. Job, Jake.
No pressure at all for me. It's especially when it came to picking a narrator. As writing the books, I went through at least 100, minimum 100 narrators. 100 narrator things before I decided on you as a narrator. No joke. And it had to take, as as if you're going into narration, you need to have like 4 or 5 different samples of different reading styles to figure out how you want to attract your listener.
Mhm.
So, and how you want the tone of your book to be, or whatever you want, or the commercial, or whatever you're working on. So I actually had to go through, I narrowed it down to 10 people. You were definitely on, you were in the top 5.
Wow.
I'm not gonna lie, you were in the top 5. I got it, narrowed it down. And the item, I listened on my computer, I listened to it on my laptop, I listened on my phone, but the deciding factor was I listened to it in my car stereo.
Okay.
Because I
And
knew
that's smart.
it has to be, because you don't know where the person's going to be listening. Especially right now, somebody could be running right now with a pair of earbuds in, or Dr. Dre's, Beats, whatever it is,
Yeah.
or the El Cheapo Kmart ones. Well, not Kmart, but Walmart things, or they're driving in their car. Most people have stock stereos in their car. So I listen to both my cars. My one car I have set up for sound competition, because I'm in the car audio highly, that has like everything all tuned down. It's made for sound quality.
Wow.
Like your recording studio.
Yeah.
And the other one is my normal daily driver. So for me to actually narrow it down and pick your voice to do that, I listened to it all through those mediums.
Wow. Wow. That blows my mind. And you and I hadn't really talked about this before.
No.
And so to hear that now, it's it's certainly humbling. When you're in my shoes, you're auditioning for things every day. And really the mindset that you have to carry day in and day out is you do an audition and you send it and you forget it. You can't dwell on, oh, I really hope I get this one, or I really hope I get that one, because you just have to keep moving forward. And because you can never be like, oh, if for that one, if I had done this differently, please. I usually crank out between 20 and 30 auditions every single day. And, that mindset is key to be able to do it in that sort of volume, which kind of brings me to another point. When you're talking about auditions, out of those 20 or 30 auditions I will do in a day, I'll be lucky if I land one of those.
Okay.
So, something that I had to learn very early on is dealing with rejection and not taking it personal. That's
Yes.
it's key. And I remember, back in my radio days, there would be the sales side of things. And I'd be like, I could never be a salesman. They get told no, 90 out of 100 times, with people that they talk to. And, the salespeople would just be like, you just get used to it. I'm like, nah, I never could. But here I am now. That's what I'm doing. And you have to realize in my business or in any business similar to it, that just because you didn't get the job doesn't mean that you're not great at what you do. They may have been looking for a pepperoni pizza, but you're a pineapple pizza. Doesn't mean you're not a really good pineapple pizza. It's just you're not the pizza they were looking for,
Exactly. But what you're saying that is that person might know somebody that wants the pineapple pizza.
Yeah, exactly.
So
Yeah.
you never know who's listening, who's not listening, or who actually knows somebody that knows somebody.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's just all about volume. And I think that with any sort of, entrepreneurial business where you have a product or service that you're offering, and, you got to put it out there. It's really all about putting it out there and getting as many eyeballs on it, or in my case, as many ears on it as possible, and see what happens. Because, if you're a voiceover artist and you're doing 5 auditions a day, it's going to take you a while to gain traction. You really have to do it in bulk. The numbers are key.
Okay. So numbers are key on that. It's almost break time. So we're just going to wrap up a little bit here. And see, like I said, the time flies, especially when we're talking about great content like what we're doing right now. We talked about, some of your history, that you started off at a very small job and you jumped around a little bit, but the no experience aspect of not being able to get a job didn't stop you. You found another way to do that. And, and now you're actually your own bit, you did the radio for so long. Then you transferred over to being your own boss. And that's crazy. And that's what a lot of people are looking to do right now, because they're tired of the 9 to 5. They want to actually have an opportunity to make more money on the side for whatever they need.
Exactly. You got to have faith in yourself. You got to make that jump.
Yes. And right now, folks, I thank you for listening. At the moment, we got to take a break. I have my guest, AJ Dukette, narrator, voiceover artist, narrator of the Making More Money for You series that's located on Audible, is actually out there. And we're going to take a quick break, and we're going to come back and talk some more with AJ.
All right, you guys are all clear.
All right. Thanks, Gabe.
Wow. Does that get stressful when you he's counting you down?
No,
you got to time it out.
Yeah, you got to time it out. It came down. I found that doing a recap of everything, especially at about the minute mark going downwards, it's a little bit earlier.
Honestly, I didn't even see any of those texts until the last one where it said 30 seconds. And I was like, I'm nervous for you.
The first couple were I was way early. And then the next one, I was like way late. And then it's like, okay, I'm like right in this little area right here. It's like
finding that sweet spot. Yeah. How long are the breaks?
Oh, about less than a minute.
Oh, okay. That's cool.
Yeah, it's just going to go through the promo quick. 2 promos. They'll come back and we'll start hearing the music coming back, and they'll count us down to when Gabe will actually let us know when it's about ready.
Excellent.
We'll go back on.
Yeah.
And we'll go more into like your movie stuff and how you've actually like the equipment and whatnot. We'll get into a little bit what's needed, and we'll just go where it goes.
Sounds good.
All right, we're coming back in about 20 seconds.
You're listening to Making More Money for You with Magnus Carter. If you have any questions for Magnus or his guests, join us on the show at 866-472-5789. That's 866-472-5789. Now back to the show. Here is Magnus Carter.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the show. If you haven't tuned into the first part, you missed a really great part with my guest, AJ Dukette, and myself. We're actually talking about how to make money by talking, which is kind of weird and kind of strange all at the same time. But AJ Dukette is actually a voiceover artist that does narrations. He does commercials. He does promos and Netflix things and all these other things by using his voice and working for himself doing it. Not only did he do those items, he is actually the narrator for the Making More Money for You series books that I have written. So if you have a chance, go check them out. They're on Amazon. They're on Audible, and also all over the internet if you just search Making More Money for You. Well, AJ, welcome back to the show.
Thank you. Yeah, Jake, great first segment. In fact, I just got word that that the first half of this episode so far, this is the most listened to show ever on Voice America. Did you know that?
No, I didn't know that at all.
It's amazing.
That's crazy.
You know, you told me that the show is doing well, but I didn't realize it. 1.7 million listeners. This is crazy.
Wow. As
I'm just kidding.
I know. well, not actually kidding about things. We are actually over 1,500 streams and live listenings.
It's awesome.
So from 1 month of my guests and great content and the ability to be on Voice America, you know, and my listeners, without you guys out there listening and wanting to make more money for yourselves, wouldn't be here. So it's wonderful. And, you know, we talked about getting yourself set up from your transition from like a radio show host, from a small talk show to bigger stations, and then going into yourself and also the expansion that you're doing. You're not only just doing narration, you're not doing just what e-learning is a big thing that you're doing, and those website document descriptions and whatnot. How do you do all this stuff? Where do you do it?
Yeah. It's interesting because, like I sort of alluded to in the first segment, being a full-time voice actor is very different from what I expected it would be. Again, I thought I was just going to have, one source of revenue. You know, I would get TV and radio commercials from, a handful of people I knew, and that was going to be it. But it's not that at all. Just like as in any other business, and as an investor, you're probably familiar with this, Magnus, that you need to diversify.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
So that's something that I learned very early on. And that is, it's a direct side-by-side comparison there that you can compare, investing with business, is that you have to diversify your interests. And I try to never have more than 20% of my revenue coming from one particular service. Okay. Or one particular source. I think that's a good habit because, like they say in business diversification, you don't want to put all your eggs in one basket, because if, for some reason I'm getting all my money from this particular source and then all of a sudden that goes away, then I'm kind of screwed. So if I'm well diversified, then, I don't have to worry about that so much.
Speaking of being diversified, what are the three, there's so many categories, like you're blowing my mind out there. I didn't realize there's so many categories and subcategories out there. What categories do you find yourself most entertained to take a position for?
Yeah, I think e-learning is a lot of fun. As I was saying with audiobooks, it's kind of nice to be able to get an education while you're working. And that certainly happens with audiobooks. And that certainly happens with e-learning as well. And, depending on the topic, I could I could tell you all about everything that you need to do to take apart and put together a Kirby vacuum cleaner, because I did an hour-long e-learning for Kirby on that. Now, is that something I brag about a lot? No. It's not as sexy as some of my other gigs, like my Netflix gig, but it's one of the many different jobs that I've done. And this job just takes me down so many different roads to so many different places. And, who knows what I'll be doing next week or next month. So
Absolutely.
it's really fun.
Especially after an episode like this, because I know a lot of authors are listening, and a lot of people that may need your services are listening as well.
Yeah.
Because businesses out there, they're constantly looking for talent. They don't know where to go, they don't know what to get for, or the person that they were using before is no longer there, or they retired, they found something else, whatever the reasoning is for that. So, and that's one of the great things here is, like you're saying, you don't know what's coming down. Who knows what's going to happen next? It could be the next, you could be the next intro person for a DC movie, or
Sure.
anything.
Yeah. Well, and you bring up a good point, because this will happen a lot where, somebody is in a particular business that doesn't really need voiceover all that often, but all of a sudden they're in a position where they need voiceover. Let's take audiobook narrators, for example.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes what will happen is somebody will write a book, and then it'll come time where they're, thinking about, well, maybe I should have an audiobook. Some authors will say, oh, I can do that. Why don't I just do that myself? I have a pretty decent sounding voice. Why don't I save some money and do it myself? Well, sure. I mean, I'm sure you have a great sounding voice. Probably, maybe even as good as mine. I don't know. But here's the thing. You don't do this on a regular basis. So one, do you have the equipment to do it? Two, do you have the time to do it? Because if you don't do this too often, you're going to have to learn audio editing software. And you're going to find very quickly that it's going to take a lot of time for you to accomplish that, and that you would be much better off handing it off to somebody that actually does it for a living. Because that's another thing that, we think about as entrepreneurs is sourcing. And for me, it's pretty simple. If there's something that's going to cost me $100 to do, maybe I could do it, but how long is it going to take me to do it? What is my time worth? What do I make, say, per hour on average? Mm-hmm. If it's going to take me longer than that to do it myself, then it just makes more sense to hire somebody else that knows what they're doing when it comes to that, so that I can better focus my time on doing what I do best.
Oh, exactly. And going through publishing an audiobook is, I found out a couple of times from a couple other authors, like you were saying, the quality wasn't there in their files. And,
yeah,
the website denied them, and they had to actually go back and spend more time to reread and re-record things. And once that happens, you got to make sure you have the right tone, you got the right speed, you have to have all that stuff so it actually still fits with your book.
Right.
I've heard a couple audiobooks. I've heard quite a few audiobooks out there. Some were great, some narrators were questionable, but it wasn't my type of what I was looking for, but what that author was looking for, that's what they needed. So
yeah, I think when it comes to voiceover, with the pandemic and a lot of people stuck at home, a lot of people kind of got it in their heads that, well, maybe voiceover is something that I should try. So then all of a sudden you had this huge influx of a lot of people just jumping in, and I'm sure, like, a lot of people did it the right way, but then a lot of people maybe not doing it the right way. And so then you've got some voice actors out there who might not be so great because they didn't do their homework, and they didn't take the right path to success.
So with that said, sparks of wisdom do you have for people that are trying to do this?
Yeah, I don't dole out wisdom of the business all that often because I consider myself to be fairly new to taking voiceover seriously.
Right.
Like I said, really, doing this full time for like a whole year and a half or so. I mean, besides the part-time side hustle experience that I had, before that. But I have learned a lot in the past year and a half. And I would say it really all starts with that, is about doing your homework.
Okay.
And the easiest way to do that, I think, is listening to podcasts. There are some really good podcasts out there for people who are interested in starting a career in voiceover. And if you're really passionate about it and you really want to invest the time into learning the craft, then you'll take the time, maybe while you're driving or, while you're cleaning the house or whatever, to listen to some of these podcasts and get some insight, because there are 100 different ways to do this wrong.
Okay.
And
Can you elaborate on that a little bit? Just like
Yeah.
one or two examples on that.
Yeah. So a lot of people will jump in. They won't listen to podcasts. They won't seek advice. They'll just think that they can immediately get started with, with a $50 microphone from Walmart and do it in the middle of their living room. And, look, just because there are platforms out there like Fiverr, which really gives people the opportunity to have a platform to go out there and compete, just because that is there, do you really have the chops to be able to do it? So I think that it all starts with getting a mentor, getting some coaching. A lot of people starting out kind of balk at that. They're like, well, wait a minute, I gotta do coaching. That means I have to spend money. I already spent $50 on this microphone. Now I have to spend more. Well, yeah, I mean, coaches cost money because their time is valuable, but it's a business investment. I mean, all in, when you're starting a voiceover business, my recommendation is to start with some good equipment. Your microphone doesn't have to be $1,000 microphone. You can get a decent microphone for probably $200 or $300. Investing in some coaching, which your coaching sessions can run anywhere between $100 up to $300 an hour. And you're going to need several hours. You're going to need some good acoustical treatment for your recording space. It's very important, because even if you have a really good high quality microphone, if you're not in the right space, it's going to sound like crap.
Yeah, you're gonna get that tin walls or
Exactly.
the bass and you
Yeah.
get the reverb and all that stuff. I
Yeah.
understand.
Yeah. So all in, you're looking at a minimum initial investment of, maybe $1,000, maybe $2,000. Some
Okay.
people would say all the way up to maybe $10,000 or $15,000, depending on, because then the other thing is that, once you get your coaching down, you need a good voiceover demo. And that is a significant investment as well, but that's something that's going to allow you the opportunity to go out and market. So people balk at that. They're like, wow, I don't have that kind of money laying around. Well, think about it this way. If you want to, if you decide you want to become a mechanic, you're going to have to start by investing in tools.
Right.
You can't just say, oh, I've got this, this little play wrench set and I'm going to start fixing cars now. It doesn't work that way. So, with most businesses, there is an upfront investment that needs to be made. And I think once you realize that, and you listen to the right people and you're willing to make those smart business investments to begin, it just kind of snowballs from there.
Oh, I completely agree. And all that pretty much goes for all aspects of business.
Yeah.
Because I've seen a lot of people, I've been through a couple of myself, of going in with 1 foot in, 1 foot out. And a hand on someone, a different business, and trying to juggle them all out at the same time, and it doesn't
Yeah.
work.
Yeah.
Something's got to fall, and something's gonna, the quality is not going to be there. That's one thing when I was considering doing this radio show on Voice America was, will I have time to still put out good quality books?
Yeah.
Because that was more of the items that, I find relaxation in doing that, and doing authorial items. And this was, I'm like, well, let's give it a shot. We had the promos. So honestly, the first part of this promo is actually the end of this month, which they were gracious enough, and I haven't really talked about it, is I actually renewed the show because I have seen the value that it's bringing to people, and it did not diminish my quality of my book writing.
Oh, that's great.
So it's wonderful as I'm taking the content from here, I'm putting it in books and vice versa. So multiple mediums to keep everything moving. So, and what you're saying definitely makes a lot of sense is, invest the time, invest in coaches, and YouTube's great to get started with, but it's not the end all be all. Someone in your position, you were mentored by somebody in the radio station, you learned the business, you learned how everything generated, and then from there you made it your own.
Yeah. I mean, I think any sort of business investment can be scary. It's like, am I making the right decision? Am I really going to get this money back in the long run for this investment? So, and as far as coaches and in the voiceover world, I think one of my first voiceover coaching experiences, I put my faith into this guy that seemed to have a pretty decent reputation as a voiceover coach. At least it appeared that way, but it did not go so well. He was not punctual at all. And once we dug in, I mean, you get an hour with your coach, and this guy spent most of the hour talking about how great he is and, everything he's done. And it's like, dude, I'm paying you like, a few dollars a minute here. Every minute that you're talking, you're wasting my time. It's like throwing money out the window. But I learned from that experience, and the next time around, when it came to selecting a coach, I worked even harder to do my homework and actually connected with people who have worked with this person and made sure that business investment was going to be a wise one.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
A bad business investment is still an investment as long as you learn from it. It's still a positive outcome for it.
That's a really good way to look at it.
Absolutely. Because every time someone looks at something and it failed, it's like, oh, it's a failure. It's like, no, it's not really a failure. You take that as a learning opportunity to go to the next one. It's like, okay, well, this doesn't work. Okay, I used this amount of money. Okay, now I'm going to go into the next adventure or the next person with half of that money and expect twice as much out of them.
Yeah.
And see if they deliver.
Yeah. So my latest voiceover coach, who I worked with I've been working with him regularly for most of this year, and finally led up to production of my commercial voiceover demo, which I actually just put out to the public today.
Oh, really?
Coincidence. Yep. And which was great, because now I have the opportunity to tell the world about it on the Magnus Carter Show.
Yes, you do.
I feel like I'm doing press for it. Yeah, so my new demo, it's out now. It's available in stores. But no, I mean that, between the coaching that I've been doing this year and the demo production, that really amounts to a significant portion of my income for the year. But I feel very strongly that is going to help catapult me into the next level, because when you want to start to take things to the next level, that's when you need a good demo so that you can start to talk about representation and things like that. And so that's where I'm at now.
So you've been doing this for a while. You've been doing the radio and whatnot, and
Hmm.
you're taking it to the next level, but you're not stopping learning. That's
Yeah.
intriguing.
Yeah. Yeah. No, maybe that's one of the reasons why voiceover has clicked for me since I took it full time, is that I've just always been so intrigued by it and so passionate about it and passionate about learning, because I'm only limited to how hard I want to work, and there's always new things for me to learn.
Okay.
And it's just, I love it. To me, it's not just talking into a microphone. I mean, that's, as a voiceover artist, that's great, but that's a small percentage of what you do in a typical day. I kind of consider myself more of a marketer than a voiceover artist, because it's really all about spending all that time marketing, and then you get the job and then you do it.
Okay. And not only that is you're actually marketing to your employer of what they're trying to solve.
Exactly. Yeah. You have to be the solution
Exactly. Or
to their problem.
you're actually the voice of the solution, if you will.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So it's been quite the journey, uh, learning and speaking with you and talking about coming on the show. And the more that I thought about it, the more parallels that I saw between being a solopreneur and the financial world. You know, uh, Hedging your bets, taking risks, making smart investments in your money and in your time, and diversifying. I mean, I have a lot in common as the owner of my business with, an investor for sure.
Okay. Now, with you doing this as your sole entrepreneurship, is your sole, time focus, time. Do you find that the more passion you put into your projects, the better they turn out?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Yeah. Without question. I mean, and that's the great thing, the more sweat equity that I'm willing to pour into it, the better the outcomes are for sure. And that is most apparent when it comes to the marketing.
Okay.
If I, it's kind of like the auditions. I mean, auditions in a way is marketing, but
Mhm.
then if you also go to say like, sending cold emails to
Right.
various people that work at places that employ voiceover people, if I am sending 5 of those a day, it's going to take a while for me to get traction. But if I'm sending 20 of them a day, then things are going to start to pick up a little bit more, because you have to you have to think in terms of percentages and understand what kind of numbers you need to hit in terms of marketing and auditions to get the result that you're looking for.
Wow, that is a very in-depth look at your craft, if you will. And I thank you for definitely taking the time to
Yeah.
share that with my listeners that are looking to, pick a narrator or pick a solution, or even a side hustle, as we're saying here, of actually looking into being a voiceover person artist.
I'll tell you what, real quick, for anyone that's thinking about becoming a voiceover artist, one of the things that I was concerned about was that I'm sure there are so many people that are trying voiceover right now. There's going to be a lot of competition. Is there enough work? Let me tell you, there is plenty of voiceover work out there. And I wouldn't be saying this if I was concerned about competition or whatever, but no, there's lots of demand for voiceover out there. You just have to be willing to put in the work to go get it, because it's not gonna fall in your lap.
Well, we're going to make that a little easier for you right now. Can you tell us how we can actually acquire your services if we are looking into needing a voiceover artist?
This is amazing. We've come to the time for the plugs. I kind of feel like I'm on the
Yes.
Tonight Show and it's time to promote my product. before we
Absolutely.
wrap up. And my product is my voiceover. My website is ajdukette.com with a K. You probably see my name somewhere on there if you're watching or listening, but yeah, that's my website. You can hear my demos and you can see some of the projects I've worked on. And, even if you just want to reach out to me and be like, hey, I heard you on the Magnus Carter show and I'm interested in exploring a career. I'll tell you what answer any questions you want to know. If you just want to connect, I'm on all social medias, LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, all of it. Yeah, I'm there. Find me. Let's chat.
Absolutely. AJ, I can't thank you enough for taking the time out of your busy schedule to be on here on the show.
I'm not busy. I'm not busy. Thank you for taking the time, by the way, out of your vacation. I see are you in Bermuda?
No, that was actually the Bahamas, but
that's the Bahamas.
Yeah, that's Bahamas from a prior show. So we're actually doing well.
Nice.
But I would like to thank all my listeners for tuning in. This week is been a great way to look at narration and audio performing arts, if you will. Also, next week, I know I don't have a show up there yet, but next week is for all of our gearheads out there. And by that, I mean, we're going to talk about how car collection and cars in general will help make more money for you. I want to thank you for tuning in. Next week, I will have another special guest. And AJ, I can't appreciate your time enough.
Magnus, it was the pleasure is all mine. This was a lot of fun. Thank you.
Okay. All right, everybody. Get out there, enjoy the weather, and also try something different this week. Step out of your comfort zone for 1 second. See how you like it.
All right, we are all clear.
Awesome.
All right, and Magnus, I'm going to pass this over to Aaron real quick